The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Today's show is going to be about analysis, level-headed analysis of what we saw from Jayden Daniels last night. And it will probably sound something like this. Oh, my God! Did you see what happened last night? After this wandering in the desert for over 30 years to find a quarterback, they may have found one. Oh, my God, was that spectacular last night? That's pretty much how the analysis is going to go. I'm going to hear from a bunch of people, including Jayden Daniels, including the recipient of the first touchdown pass of what we hope will be many from Jayden Daniels over the next decade or more last night. Wow. Whoa. Did you see that coming? I didn't. I certainly didn't see it coming when the Bengals took the opening kickoff and drove right down the field and scored a touchdown just a couple of minutes into the game. But the response was remarkable, and the statistics are beyond belief. Now, Daniels last night completed 21 of 23 passes for 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the quarterback rating, while it's outstanding, it's not the highest you can get. I think the highest is like 158. He was 141.7. But he set a rookie record by completing 21 of 23 for 91.3%. That's the highest rookie completion percentage ever in a game, breaking what Dak Prescott did in 2016 for the Cowboys against Tampa Bay when his percentage was 88.9. On top of that, this team has now gone 2 straight games without punting the football. They haven't had a turnover all year long. And last night was historic in that neither team punted nor turned the ball over. That's the first time that had happened since 1940. And the Commanders have gone now 14 meaningful drives, meaning minus the kneel downs, scoring. It's unbelievable. And here is what UB Brown would call a staggering stat. They have scored on every drive in back-to-back games, excluding kneel downs. They have had 8 drives, as they did last night, 5 touchdowns and a field goal, and 2 ending in kneel downs at the end of each half. In week 2 versus the Giants, they had 7 field goals and a kneel down to end the half. Basically, 100% scoring rates. For one game, that is extremely rare. There have been 10 games this century, since 2000, where a team has scored on every drive excluding kneel downs. That's a 1 in 1,300 chance. Now, considering that there have been 12,990 games, including playoffs, the Commanders did this twice in a row, making it ready for this, a 1 in 1.7 million feet. It's almost like winning the lottery here. And here are some more numbers for you. Jayden Daniels has had 2 career NFL games where his team scored on every drive, excluding kneel downs, 3 total starts for Daniels so far. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, and Patrick Mahomes combined to do that twice in their entire careers, including playoffs. That's 1,094 starts. This is absolutely unbelievable. And, oh, yeah, I mean, we thought he was going to be good, but this good? Wow. Dan Quinn gets a little salty in the locker room, win or lose, and this was yet another victory speech with the pauses. Well, you can guess what the words are.
We said earlier in the week, man, you put the work in when it was ready for go time, all right? There was a lot of people outside our building said, nah, that's a bad win tonight, all right? All right, let's go get another one, all right? Take it on the road, head to Arizona. Proud of you guys, man, all right? That's a great team win tonight, all right? Team win.
Woo! Man, now, 3 starts don't make a career. And we've seen the RG3 movie, right? It was a magical 2012 season, which soon went up in smoke. Chances are that won't happen here, but it is always a possibility. But for a team that has been searching for quarterback stability basically since the end of the 1993 season, when Mark Rippon had an injury-filled year and really wasn't that good, ending a 5-year run as the starting quarterback. Closest they've had to that kind of stability is Kirk Cousins starting every game between 2015 and 2017. So 3 straight seasons getting every start. But since then, since Kirk Cousins left when they basically released him, they signed Alex Smith, here is what has happened at the quarterback position. 2018, Alex Smith got 10 starts before he suffered that horrific broken leg. In came Colt McCoy, who suffered a broken leg after 2 starts. In came Mark Sanchez, who was brutally bad in his 1 start. In came the well-traveled Josh Johnson, who is still in the league with about his 17th or 18th team. He had 3 starts that year and actually won a game. 2019, Case Keenum is the starting quarterback for 8 games. Dwayne Haskins, who was drafted in the first round, gets 7 starts. Colt McCoy, 1. 2020, Alex Smith makes a miraculous recovery from that broken leg, manages to make 6 starts that year. Dwayne Haskins made 6 before he was released, and Kyle Allen made 4 starts. Let's take it to 2021. They bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick, veteran journeyman quarterback who can hopefully bring the young players along and have some stability maybe for 2 or 3 years. He lasts 16 snaps. Taylor Heineke, who had come to the team the year before after sleeping on his sister's couch as what they called a COVID quarterback. He needed to be separated from the rest of them in case COVID went through the quarterback room and he'd have to play, and he wound up playing in that playoff game. When you look at the 2020 season, that's not even counting the playoff game where he beat Tom Brady. He made 15 starts in 2021. Garrett Gilbert made a start when Heineke had COVID. Then in 2022, then you have Carson Wentz making 7 starts. Taylor Heineke makes 9 when Wentz gets hurt. And Sam Howell starts the last game of the season. Last year, Howell made 17 starts, giving them more stability at quarterback than they had had since 2017. What is the total? That brings us to 13 different starting quarterbacks since Kirk Cousins left after the 2017 season. And this is what Barry Verluga writes in his column in the Post today. Whatever happens Sunday in Arizona or the following week against Cleveland or all the weeks that remain in Jayden Daniels' rookie season and the rest of his career, remember Monday night. Monday night, he won an NFL game with his own talent, which is blazing, and his own demeanor, which embraces the Klieg-lights rather than cowering from them. Monday night is when we discovered for sure that he can do this being quarterbacking an NFL team with a combination of explosiveness and calm. The Washington Commanders search for a quarterback, an annual and eternal pursuit. Damn, if it isn't tempting to say it's over. But come on, we've seen this before. I would liken this to like a guy who calls his mom who's been divorced 4 times, and he says, "Mom, I'm bringing her home for dinner, and she's the one." I think we're in that stage of a little bit of skepticism there. But he has been absolutely spectacular. As Barry points out in his column, Jayden Daniels has now thrown 76 NFL passes. He's run the ball 33 times. He's been sacked 9 times, twice last night, has 0 NFL turnovers. Think about that. 0 NFL turnovers. And he's 3 games into his career. I mean, we thought we were going to have to live with the bumps, and to some extent we have. I mean, he had his issues, and you had a big scare when he took that hit against the Giants and had to miss a play. But by and large, it looks like they've got their guy. That's kind of a tough thing to get your head around with what we've seen with this team, but he has arrived. He clearly has arrived. This is last night, Buck and Aikman, who called the game on ESPN with Scott Van Pelt, who gives it the absolute right touch. This is a wonderful thing about having Scott Van Pelt do this. He now lives in town, grew up here, and is open about his rooting for the team. He did a really nice sit-down last week with Jayden Daniels, and this is SVP talking to Buck and Aikman, the grizzled play-by-play guy who's seen it all, and the quarterback who's in the Hall of Fame. And let's be fair, I mean, Aikman was pointing out all the flaws early on for Jayden Daniels, but as the game went on, it was pretty clear he was playing one hell of a football game. And this is the analysis that SVP got from the two announcers after the game last night.
I always say the lights on Monday Night Football, they're brighter than anywhere else, but it would seem silly to call it a breakout performance for a dude that won a Heisman at LSU, and yet on this stage to perform this way at this level, you tell me what you saw.
I saw a young guy who looked totally in control, who looked like he was having fun on the sideline, who trusted the guys around him. I'm with you. I mean, it's week number 3.
Yep.
But, I mean, the breakout has to happen at some point. Everybody's been talking about, the first-round quarterbacks, and nobody's throwing touchdowns in the league. And he looked in total command the entire night. So I was blown away by what we saw here tonight. You talk to him and you love him. I know you sat down with him. He's great.
Yep.
But he can play, and Washington knows they got a good one at number 2 overall.
Troy, you might be amazed to know this given your history with the fans there in Washington, given the uniform that you wore so well for so long. But I wrote down some things you wrote tonight that have folks there just over the moon. You spoke of his poise, you spoke of his growth, and you called it rare. If you saw evidence of that tonight, are there specific things you'd point to that are illustrations of that poise and that growth?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, you called it on the highlight reel. The game's on the line, and they put the ball in his hands. They did not try to protect him. He knew exactly what the situations were at key moments. He converted 4th down 3 different times, a couple times with his legs. He made a big throw there at the end. I mean, just did a lot of good stuff. I commented to Joe before we just came on the air with you that he just woke up Washington Nation. I spent time there at RFK and FedEx Field as a player. I know what those fans can bring. I know what a home field advantage that they had for so many years, and it's been a long time. And I feel bad for those suffering fans, but I can only imagine if you were a Washington Redskins fan, a Washington Commanders fan, and you're watching this game, it must feel really good because you don't want to anoint anybody right away, but I thought coming into this game that he had some intangibles, and he certainly has the athletic ability and all the things that you look for, but his intangibles I thought could take him over the top, and I really like him, and I think he's going to have a fantastic career. What I witnessed tonight, time will tell, but I would be really shocked, and I'm happy for Washington fans who have been suffering for as long as they have.
I think we've only been doing this for a few years, but you guys know my MO. Try to be reasonable. Try not to overreact. But this is a really difficult night if you're a Washington fan, not to just in week 3 completely lose your mind, because Troy, and Joe, both of you, there's a not a casualness, but a calm about him. You pointed it out, smiling on the sidelines. It just doesn't feel like moments are big, and they don't get much bigger than this. You're facing a desperate team, but his ability to just completely diffuse all that is really interesting to me. What do you make of it?
There's no question, and there is a time in every organization that I think you can point to when you've been struggling the way that this organization has. You can point to and say, that was the game. We didn't realize it maybe at the time, but that was the game that kind of got us going. It is early. I mean, we're talking about week 3, like Joe said. This could very well be that game, but I hate to just put it all on Jayden Daniels, although he's a big part of the story here tonight. I thought Cliff Kingsbury was fantastic. I thought, Dan Quinn preparing this team to come in here to Cincinnati with a team that had their backs against the wall, a team that has Super Bowl aspirations and has done what this organization has done. I don't think you can overstate what this win means.
Yeah, and Troy said something very, very important at the end of that conversation about how you could point to what happened last night as really the pivotal moment. He didn't use that word, but you think of this. Dan Snyder sold the team to Josh Harris over a year ago. It's July of 23 when the sale went through. So here we are, 14 months later. But this really, to me, what happened last night signifies the end of the Dan Snyder era. All the crap that we went through as fans here in his 24 years of ownership spilled over into last year because there really wasn't anything that the new ownership could do. But as the page has been turned with a general manager, which they really never had during the Snyder era. They had Scott McCloughan for a couple of years, but he was undermined by the evil Bruce Allen. And we had Vinny Serrato run and play the personnel department. It was awful. And so now you have real structure. You have a real general manager in Adam Peters, who worked with great organizations like New England and San Francisco. You have Dan Quinn, who took a team to a Super Bowl, had success as a defensive coordinator, helped to win a Super Bowl in Seattle doing that. And you have some sense in the organization. You have a feeling of some confidence here that they're going to get this right. And so I think years from now, if this continues on this path and Daniels turns out to be one of those guys. Now, Burrow is one of those guys, and he played pretty well last night, but his team is 0-3 right now. So you don't know exactly how it's going to go. It's not going to go smoothly all the time. Hell, Trevor Lawrence was terrible last night, and he may even be benched off of that performance. But when you look at turning points, this could be the night, and we may point to September 23rd, 2024, as when things took a step forward and took a direction into a positive move. And I think that, when I think back of how it started with Joe Gibbs, remember Gibbs was 0-5. They finished the year 8-8. And the following year, they play the opening game at Philadelphia, and it looks like they go to 0-1. But Mark Mosley kicks a 48-yard field goal to send it into overtime. And at the time, a 48-yard field goal was a tough kick, and he made it. And they went to overtime, and he wound up kicking the game-winning field goal to win that. And John Riggins told me, he said, once that kick went through, we got the feeling like we could be really good. Now, they had to pause for 2 months because of the strike, but once they came back, they were clearly the best team in football, and then, of course, went on to win their first Super Bowl in Super Bowl 17. And that's not to say that this team is a Super Bowl team this year. It's probably far from it with that defense, but what we saw last night may be the beginning of a new era. The feeling today as you walk around and talk to people in your office or where you have lunch or your family, whatever, I think you're going to have conversations that are going to remind you of what it was like all those years ago when you Monday mornings or Tuesday mornings in this case, after wins like that there is such a feeling of, as Tony put it, and sadly it didn't last long, but when RG3 was doing his thing in 2012, Tony called it the era of unbridled optimism. And I'll be interested to hear what he's going to use today when he, I don't know, I guess he's not doing a show today on the radio, but what he says tonight on PTI when they talk about this, I think he will use a similar phrase, that this is an era of unbridled optimism, I guess, returning to Washington, and we hope that the sequel lasts longer than a year. How about the 2 touchdown passes that were thrown last night, and the trivia question that will be asked years later, who caught the first touchdown pass from Jayden Daniels? We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
There is a trivia question that people in Dallas have been telling for a long time, or asking, I guess is the proper way to phrase that. Who caught Roger Staubach's last pass? And, some might think of Drew Pearson, Tony Hill, maybe Dorsett caught it out of the backfield. No, his last pass was completed to Herb Scott. Herb Scott was an offensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys. He was not eligible on that play. It was at the end of the game, in a playoff game against the Rams, a desperation throw by Staubach, and Herb Scott caught it, and, of course, it was a penalty, and the Cowboys punted and I guess never got the ball back, and that was the end of Roger Staubach's career. It was a week after, and this is a horrible memory for anybody who was a Redskin fan at that time, the last game of the 1979 season, which was played in Dallas, and it came down to a winner-take-all. If the Redskins won the game, then they would go to the playoffs. They would win the division, and if the Cowboys lost the game, they would be out of the playoffs, and vice versa. And the Redskins took a 13-point lead in the fourth quarter in a 66-yard run by John Riggins, who celebrated by throwing the ball in the air. The only time in his career he ever did that. That included the Super Bowl where he just tossed the ball aside. He celebrated because he thought, hey, we're finally going to the playoffs here. And Staubach brought him back through a touchdown pass to Tony Hill in the final seconds, and the Redskins lost the game, and their season was over. Cowboys play the Rams in the playoffs the following week, and they lose, and the last pass of Staubach's career goes to Herb Scott. There's no relation. I looked this up, but the first touchdown pass of the hopefully long and fruitful career of Jayden Daniels went last night to offensive lineman Trent Scott.
God is good, man. I told Jayden we got to work something out and maybe split that football in half or something, man. But no, man. We'll talk about it later.
What was that celebration?
That was my fraternity, man. Omega Psi Phi.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it's always planned.
Always planned, man. I can do this in my sleep. Yes, sir.
Was there any doubt, Trent?
Never a doubt. I broke the line of scrimmage, man. I knew I was open. Jayden dropped the dime, man.
Yeah, he later joked that they're going to have to start bracketing him in coverage. He said they practice that play about once a week, and he also said that he was really, really nervous when the play was called in the huddle. He said, I don't want to drop the ball on Monday Night Football. If you're watching the game, Troy Aikman pointed this out, how not only happy was Cliff Kingsbury, but relieved, because he said, I'm sure there are plenty of times in practice that he drops the ball, but he held on to it, and it winds up being a touchdown pass, the first of Jayden Daniels' career, and a really great trivia question.
It was awesome. Cliff and them called the play kind of low on the shot clock, so getting the guys set, getting them going, and they were all discombobulated on defense, so we got a sneaky one to Trent, so it was awesome for him and also for me.
Who's getting that ball?
That's what we're discussing right now. So
yeah, we'll probably work that out. I got to give the ball to Daniels, and I paint another one for Scott. Maybe not the actual ball, but if I'm making that call, I give it to Jayden Daniels. Now, this is going to happen, and this is kind of how the wheel rotates, especially even just 3 games into the season, that you're now hearing, well, if they redid the draft today, you're going to take Jayden Daniels number 1 and Caleb Williams goes number 2, and look at what happened last year. The better quarterback was taken. Okay, all those things. And I'll only give you this in regards to if you did want to go down that road. Louis Riddick, who went to all the pro days for the top quarterbacks coming out this year, all the guys that were expected to go in the first round. He went to all the pro days. And at the end of it, heading into the draft, Louis Riddick said, I have no doubt that Caleb Williams is going to be good. He said, but if I were the Chicago Bears, I would take Jayden Daniels number 1 overall. That would be my pick. And I think the thinking at that time was, maybe, but everybody's had their eye on Caleb Williams for 3 years, and some said he's the greatest quarterback prospect ever to come out of college. Maybe so. But you got to think right now that the Commanders are pretty darn happy with what they did. And this was Quinn last night asked about what they thought at the time they drafted Daniels number 2 back in April.
We just knew this was the guy for us. That's what we knew. And it was the competitor, it was the work ethic, it was all of those things that wrapped up that Adam and I said, what are we looking for in a commander? And that was Jayden. And it's been a number of his teammates as well. So to see some of those guys take on early roles, they had a sense of like this really good balance of like confidence, hard work, and humility. And to see that take place, the veterans in the locker room saw that too and said, okay, this is a guy that's really serious about what he's doing, and they wanted to work their ass off to help him too.
Yeah, that's been the feel right from the beginning, that we heard right from the start of off-season workouts. Yeah, he's showing up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He's very, very studious. He puts in the time. He puts in the work. And he also has, he has confidence, he also has humility. And one of the questions to Daniels last night was, did you see this coming? Did you expect to have this kind of success? Or he's completing 80% of his passes right now and no turnovers. And this just doesn't happen. More from Daniels.
Yeah, yes and no. Yes, because obviously it's something new to me as I continue to train in my rookie year. But also just knowing the aspect, I put in the work. And what's done in the dark will always come to light. So I just know that I'm prepared for these moments week in and week out. I'm just got to go out there and play football and execute.
That's a pretty good phrase. What is done in the dark doesn't always come to light. Ryan Clark, who's a part of the ESPN Monday Night Countdown crew, also does the postgame with Scott Van Pelt. he's got some long-term familiarity with Daniels because Clark's son was a player at Arizona State when Daniels was the quarterback there. And Daniels, if you look at the arc of his college career, it's not like when he was a freshman playing there, people said, oh, yeah, he's going to be the next great one. And even when he went to LSU, transferring from Arizona State after, I guess, a disappointing third year for him, he was not spectacular in his first year there. It was only last year that he really turned it on. But Clark, who played, 14, 15 years in the NFL, played here twice, wrapping up his career with Washington, he saw the early Jayden Daniels and saw something right away.
I got to watch Jayden Daniels at 18 years old stand across the sideline from Justin Herbert when he was at Oregon. Mm-hmm. And it's late in the game, and they need a scorer. They could punt the ball and try to play defense. It's third down. He looks at Brandon Ayuk, and Brandon Ayuk runs a stutter from the 20-yard line. 80 yards later, it's a touchdown, and the Arizona State Sun Devils beat the Oregon Ducks. And that's when I looked at that kid, and I said, okay, he has a chance to be something because he was poised, and he ran off the field smiling after that play. He didn't get too high. He didn't get to a point to where he thought he had made it. He felt like he was supposed to make that play. And you could see some of the beginnings of what he is now on that night.
Yeah, so that's a guy who knows football. And I don't know if you had talked to Ryan Clark that night, if he would have said, oh, watch out for him down the line. But, people clearly like him. There's nothing that you hear about him that's like a red flag. There was something about the mom who may have been doing some illegal recruiting things when he was playing at Arizona State, but that sort of blew it. But nothing about him. So keep your fingers crossed, but it looks like they got their guy. After all that, 13 different starting quarterbacks since Kirk Cousins left after the 2017 season, and they're finally there. There's another issue from last night, which is worth chatting about for a moment here. First of all, Zach Taylor is the coach of the Bengals, and he's got a problem here because the numbers tell you this is mostly with 16 games seasons, but now it's been year 4 with 17. You start 0-3, you have almost no chance of making the playoffs, almost no chance. And now his team is 0-3. And my feeling was, maybe your feeling, certainly the number reflected that, 7.5-point favorites, that this was a desperation game for Cincinnati. They're a playoff team. They look like a playoff team. They got a franchise quarterback making top dollar in Joe Burrow. He's got his receivers, and he got another one back last night, that they would win the game. And I guess they didn't heed the warning that Zach Taylor had, but this was kind of like, and I told you so after the game.
I knew that was going to be a difficult football team. I saw what they did last week on offense. They scored on every possession last week. They scored on every possession this week. And so I knew that was a dangerous team, and they were ready for us, and they made more plays than we did today. You got to give them a ton of credit. They dictated the flow of the game, and we couldn't do enough to create a turnover, make a play for ourselves, and go win the game.
Zach, specifically, surprised or disappointed in how the defense played?
It's a good offense. We got to get stops, and we never really put them in a third and long situation until that last one. That was really the first time that we put them behind the chains. And so when they can dictate the tempo, which they did, they were on the ball, they dictated the tempo. They kept themselves in really manageable situations. I thought their quarterback played great, 2 incompletions, made a lot of plays with his feet. So it was a difficult challenge, and obviously it wasn't enough from us today.
Yeah, they're not good against the run. Cincinnati 29th in the league against the run, and so good to see them making use of Brian Robinson. God, was he wasted last year in the way Eric Bieniemy ran that offense, but he's very effective. Austin Eckler is really a key player for them. Made some huge plays last night, including a kickoff return, which he took 62 yards and set up a touchdown. That's a guy who they're going to miss. He's not. It's not 100%, but it sounds pretty clear that he's not going to play against Arizona this week with a concussion. Who knows how long he's going to be out? But when he was in the game, he was very effective. Let me give you his numbers. I don't have the individual numbers on what he ran for, but yeah, I do. Let's see. Rushing was he had 3 carries for 35 yards. He also scored a touchdown and then had the kickoff return. But Robinson got the ball 16 times, 33 yards, not a lot. But when you got Daniels running as well, that's helpful. So, you're talking about between McLaurin on the receiving, I mean on the rushing. Yeah, Daniels with 12 carries, Eckler with 3, that's 15, Robinson 31. 31 carries, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good balance of offense. That's what you want to do. And net yards rushing 108 yards, which gave them average gain per play, with the passing game as well, which was very effective, 6.2 yards per play. So average yards per rush, 3.4, not tremendous, but that helps you control the clock. Again, they did that. They held the ball for 33 minutes in this game. So that was big. Also, going into this game, you probably heard about this, that there's a defensive back for Cincinnati who described Washington's offense as a college offense. Well, if you watch college football on Saturdays, that's actually a pretty good thing because you see teams scoring a lot of points. Now, some of it will fly in the NFL, but now more than ever, the NFL offense resembles the college game. It's changed, and it's changed over the years, partly due to what we saw when Robert Griffin III came in the league, and they designed an offense which fit him. So it's not necessarily a negative when you say, oh, they run a college offense. Well, they ran a college offense that rolled up 38 points last night and scored every time they had the ball, and scored 5 touchdowns to go with a couple of field goals. And so, when you say college offense, that's seen as a slight for a guy who's just come into the league. But we saw how this guy who just came into the league operated that offense last night, tuned up the Cincinnati Bengals, and Zach Taylor, who had to answer questions about what he had said earlier in the week.
That's not what we do. That's not what we do. We praise our own team. Praise the other team. We don't need to take shots like that. That team hasn't punted in 2 weeks. They've scored on every single possession the last 2 weeks. So I've got a tremendous amount of respect for what they're doing over there. I've known Cliff a long time. I knew paired with that quarterback, this was going to be a very dangerous offense to play against, and they've proven that. Yeah,
that's Zach Taylor, the coach, reacting to the comments made by the defensive back Cam Taylor-Britt. This is Cam Taylor-Britt answering the question about what he said.
Do you regret what you said, and can you talk us through what happened from a defensive standpoint tonight?
No, ma'am, I do not regret it. And I didn't mean anything malicious out of the comment. It was just made bigger than what it was. Yes, I can eat my words, most definitely. We did take a L today, but as a team, it was sort of college offense, very quick throws. He's very athletic in his stem plays. And that's how the game went, man. They stuck to their plan, and that's how it went.
Yeah, good for him for eating his words on that. I'll give him that. But Zach Taylor said, no, that's not the way we talk around here. I don't know, bulletin board material. I think that's highly overrated. I don't, and they don't even have bulletin boards anymore. It's all right on social media. But if you win, oh yeah, we were motivated by that. And if you lose, do you say, oh, yeah, Cam Taylor was right. Cam Taylor-Britt, we didn't perform tonight, and he's right. We got a college offense. So I think that's a little bit overblown. But I think he handled that fairly well. And Zach Taylor, the coach, has probably had a conversation. We'll have more conversations. You don't do that. You don't do anything to try and inflame the other team going into a game like that. Coming up, Terry McLaurin lives. Reports of his demise were way premature. Yeah, they had trouble connecting in the first 2 weeks. 39 yards on receptions on 8 completions. Last night, oh boy, they blew past that, and the game-winning touchdown pass, a thing of beauty, as Terry McLaurin and Jayden Daniels have now launched what looks to be the start of a beautiful friendship. We've had mornings that feel like this. It seemed like they happened quite frequently during the Joe Gibbs era, some during the George Allen era, and a few times in between. But I can't remember a morning in recent years, and say the last 30 years, where you not only have this feeling, but a feeling of sustainability, like this is going to last for a while. because even when Kirk had a couple of big games and he beat Green Bay on a Monday night or a Sunday night, probably a Sunday night, and I remember they showed Dan Snyder in his box dancing like he had a snake in his pants. But even then, there was uncertainty about his future and the contract and the way the organization ran. You knew they were going to screw it up down the line. This is a rookie. And, yeah, you had that kind of feeling with RG3, but there was also things that started to pop up later that season, which were very troubling. And, who knows what the future is going to hold for Jayden Daniels. But right now, the future looks so bright, you have to wear shades. Andrew Brandt, who is an expert on sports business, writes about it for SI.com, teaches courses, and he's a very visible guy, worked for ESPN for a while. He writes, grew up in D.C., a diehard Washington fan, went to every game with my dad. I remember how in a region where with such political division, a big win would galvanize the DMV in ways nothing else could. Feeling good for all Commander fans and the area this morning. Diana Rossini, who worked for Channel 4 here, covered the team for several years, worked for ESPN for a long time now at The Athletic, says, I've lived in a bunch of cities in my life, covering many different teams. There is no city like Washington, D.C. after a Commanders' big win. It must be buzzing this morning. Oh, yeah, it's buzzing. It's definitely buzzing. And I can't wait to get out and about today and just feel that energy that has been missing for so long. And what was the big offensive concern going into this game? You got to find a way to get Terry McLaurin the ball, right? Jayden Daniels hadn't thrown a touchdown pass. And Terry McLaurin, who is not only one of the highest paid players on the team, he's one of the most respected, one of the most talented players on the team, one of the top 20 anyway, receivers in the NFL. You got to use this weapon, and they did. And they hit him with a 55-yard pass, which set up a touchdown. And he also sealed the game with the, I think it was a 37-yard touchdown pass at the end of the game to do it. And now, whatever you were thinking about Terry McLaurin, either losing a step or not fitting in or whatever you want to say, you put that to rest last night as he had an even 100 yards in receptions, 4 catches, and the game-sealing touchdown. And if you remember over the summer, I guess it was June, right after they broke up minicamp, McLaurin went downtown and had a sit-down with Scott Van Pelt in his studio, and it was really cool. I mean, that's one of the cool things about having SVP in town, and McLaurin has always been very cooperative with the media. He's won the Good Guy Media Award, I think, every year that he's been here. And they talked about, the team and going forward. And one of the things that Scott said to him, he said, Terry, you're going into year 6 here, and nobody plays forever in this game. And you've had some great individual numbers over the years, but there hasn't been a lot of winning. He had yet to play, and he still hasn't played on a team that had a winning season. They did go 7-9 and made the playoffs in 2019. That season, or 2020, the year that Heineke played against Brady and the Bucs. But otherwise, it's been a lot of losing. And, at what point do you say, okay, this has got to happen for me, and it's got to happen pretty soon? Now, it's too early to say what the season is going to turn out to be. They got 14 games left to play, and you can crater out. There's injuries. There's all kinds of things that can happen. But right now, all that patience that he's shown, he never criticized anybody. He watched the parade of quarterbacks, of those 13 quarterbacks who have started games. He's played, I think, with 11 of them. I mean, it's just remarkable the way he's comported himself and the way he's been an absolute role model for everybody in that organization. So to the victors go the spoils. And last night, after his great performance, Jayden Daniels' great performance, and the huge win in Cincinnati, he had this conversation from the field with SVP in the studio.
Man, it's hard not to smile for Washington fans tonight. You came into our studios in D.C., and you shared with me how it felt different. And it was just mini camp. And I told you then, it's easy to talk about how the energy is going to change because it always does with new people. But a night like tonight, and you're squarely in the middle of it, what does it do for this team, Terry?
Yeah. I think it's a momentum shift for us, honestly, to stack 2 wins in a row like that. Division opponent last week, and to come on the road against a playoff team. who has playoff caliber players. It was huge for us to come on the road and get this win. And I believe the guys in this locker room believe that we could get this win. And I think it came from the energy that we had in practice. We had our best week of practice this week. Last week it wasn't our best, but we knew this week we had to put a great week of practice together. And that's what we did. And so we came out here and we really made plays when we had to make plays. And, dang, this is a good feeling, I'm telling you.
I have to imagine it is, and you played such an enormous part. That first one, the 55-yarder, is a perfect throw, and so's that 3rd and 7 touchdown that in a sense seals this game. He gets blasted on that, Terry. He knew he was going to take a hit. He's not the biggest dude. I was out at the park last week. I'm like, wow, he's kind of lean. But how? Explain to me that throw, and I don't know, could it have been any better?
Man, the people want to talk about his size, but they don't want to talk about his heart and his toughness and his poise that he has, and that you find that inside his rib cage, and the heart and the determination that kid has is unbelievable. And going into that play, I went over to the sideline. I told Cliff, put me into the boundary and let me run a go route for the game. And Jayden was down with that call. And for him to stand back there to give me enough time, because if we got pressed, we wanted to go route. But once he was off, I was like, I got to give him a little double move or something just to give him enough time to get off my route. And Jayden stuck in there like a grown man and threw enough air on it for me to track it. I just wanted to try to use late hands and get my feet in to win the game. So, honestly, I was just trying to be patient, continue to work, and I think a game like this is really going to spearhead us going into this week coming up, because we're starting to put it together offensively, scoring in the red zone, running the ball well, hitting explosive plays. That's what you got to continue to build on if you want to be good in this league. So for him to come out here on his first primetime game with the game on the line to give me a chance to help win the game, I can't thank my teammates enough, and I'm just so appreciative of God putting me in this situation, allowing me to stay patient and come through for my teammates.
Amen to all of that. Cliff shows faith in you, and you guys both deliver. I'll just close with this, because, again, when I was out at the park, I asked Jayden just how much of the history he knows. This is a young man. He was born long after Super Bowls were won. But you know that all of the DMV is listening to you right now, and you know how ecstatic they are. What's your message to them, to those fans that have just been looking for a reason, looking for an on-ramp to want to come back and buy in? What's your message to all those fans right now?
Yeah, continue to support us. I think we got the right people in place, right people in the building. More importantly, we got toughness in the building. We got a will to win. We got determination, and we got a team that's not going to quit. You got guys who are going to be tough in practice, going to be tough on the field, and when the game's on the line, you want guys that are going to want to make the plays to win the game, and I think we have that. So I'm excited to be in the DMV right now, man. It's an exciting time to be a Commander fan, and just want them to continue to support us. But it's on us enjoying this win, getting back on the road this week and going against a good Arizona team. So now it's about continuing to stack it, getting better, and it's exciting to be a Commander right now.
Well, congratulations. I'll make sure my message to Cliff is throw the ball to 17. You know that's what everybody wants to see happen. Big things happened tonight when you did, huh?
Yeah, we talked about it in studio, man, so it's just cool to see that manifest out here on the field. And it seems like every time you're around, I have a good game. So it's good to talk to you, man. And hopefully I could get to come in the studio and hang out with you again. I appreciate you.
Well, you know where we are. We're just sitting there with nothing else to do. Travel safely home. Congratulations, Terry, on a tremendous night. All right, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, that was last night with Terry McLaurin on the field. Really cool moment. And Scott has this great way of capturing, because he knows it. He grew up with it, and so he can convey while he's doing these interviews, just how meaningful it is to see McLaurin, especially for a guy. Man, he could have popped off. He could have said some things. He almost. You look at the whole time he's been here. It goes back to 2019 when the team was still the Redskins. And all the changes at coaches and quarterbacks and all the problems. And the only thing he really ever said that could be construed as, he's complaining a little bit, was a game last year. I forget which one it was, but he was targeted maybe twice in the game, and they had him running all these routes. And he said, I got to work on my cardio. And it was known that he did not like Eric Bieniemy. He did not see eye to eye with him at all. And you never heard a word from him that would indicate, that there's a real displeasure with him. So to see him come through like that is cool. Now, here's what's ahead. They go to Arizona. And I don't understand how the schedule makers do this. I thought if you played a Monday night game on the road, it was automatic that you were going to be playing at home next week. Not only are they not at home, they have to play in the Western time zone. They got a game next week at Arizona. So, it's such a short turnaround here. And 2 road games back-to-back, Monday night and then West Coast. That makes no sense. They are 3.5-point underdogs in this game, and the way this secondary looks, they still got big secondary problems. I know they're facing Joe Burrow last night, but passing yardage for Joe Burrow was what do you have? He had 18 first downs on passing there. Total net yards, Cincinnati had 436, and net yards passing 324. So and he's got good receivers. There's no question about that. But from what I've seen from Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., that's going to be a tough combination. So let's say they lose that game, so they're 2-2. Then they got Cleveland at home. Cleveland is beatable. Cleveland very beatable. Even though their defense is really good, they're beatable at home. That means they could be on the season 3-2 after that game. So they'd be 2. If they lose at Arizona, they'd be 2-2. 3-2 going to Baltimore. And that could be a really pivotal game. Baltimore's defense is also very good, but not in the fourth quarter. So if they manage to get past that, then you're looking at a pretty good stretch there where they can really, stack up some wins. They got Carolina at home. And, yes, Andy Dalton makes them look really good last week. We'll see how long that sustains. And then the big one, I hope to be there, that's Caleb Williams against Jayden Daniels, which will be Week 8, October 27th, 1 o'clock game. And then they go to the Giants the week after that. I'm not saying they're a playoff team, but they're a team that could sustain a winning record possibly into December. I think that's a real possibility. And they've got Dallas twice on the back end of the schedule. Between November 24th and the last weekend of the year, which is January 4th, they play them twice. They got them twice on the schedule. And Philadelphia, between Week 11 and Week 16, they have them twice as well. So they're going to win the division? No. But Dallas looks collapsible. Philadelphia, they did everything they could do to lose last week, and they managed to win with a couple of big plays late against New Orleans. They don't look like a good team. And, the Giants beat Cleveland on the road last week, but they have their issues. The division, which at the beginning of the year looked like they were clearly the 4th best team in the division, they may be better than that. They may be much better than that. And, it's only one night. And it's a 2-1 record, and there's 14 games left to play. But you got to feel so good about what the future holds for this quarterback. I mean, again, I can't overstate the feeling that you have here this morning. And I can read all the names again if you'd like, all the names of the quarterbacks that have played here in the post-Kirk era. I mean, it's just one name after another, Mark Sanchez, Josh Johnson. Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke has played the most games in the post-Cousins era than any other quarterback. That ought to tell you something there. So stability, looks like they got the right guy. You don't always know at the top of the draft if you got the right guy. And I think last night went a long way towards saying they have the right guy. Coming up in the next hour, we'll hear more from Dan Quinn on what happened last night. And John Gruden wants to coach again. Should he get the opportunity to do that? We'll talk about that and more as we move on. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. How do I put this? Oh, my God. Whoa. We're going to need a bigger boat. Yeah. We knew that Jayden Daniels looked like he was going to be good. And there was promise the first 2 weeks of the season. The rookie quarterbacks have been okay, and we saw some bright spots from Caleb Williams, Bo Nix. He actually won on Sunday. We didn't see this coming. This is spectacular what we saw last night. An historic performance in the third game of his career for a team that's not expected to even have a winning season. And to go into a place like Cincinnati, where the Bengals were in desperation mode, you go 0-3, your chances of making the playoffs are very, very slim, almost nil. and you're facing a team that has had playoff experience, been to the Super Bowl in recent years, has one of the great quarterbacks in the league in Joe Burrow. And to win a game like that and to do what they have done in the last, well, especially the last two games, but if you go back even to the Tampa game, that's 14 meaningful drives, meaning excluding the kneel downs, where they have scored. They're scoring on every drive. And, Tress Way, God bless him, who gave up his number to Jayden Daniels. He'd worn number 5 since he'd been here. He's the longest tenured player on the team, been here 10 years, and had worn number 5. And Jayden Daniels, who had always worn 5 even back in high school, wanted the number, but didn't, make a big stink about it. It was like, yeah, I'd like to have it. And so he gave it up. Well, with Tress Way taking 10, it doesn't really even matter because he never plays. So he does hold, and he does a nice job with that. As finally they found a field goal kicker who can kick, and that's good. But yeah, he has not punted in 2 games. It's the first time in the Super Bowl era that a team has played back-to-back games without punting and without a turnover. It's remarkable. Jayden Daniels has not had a turnover yet. And that's not to say it can't happen. And, if you look at history, too, I mean, the season that RG3 had, he only had 5 interceptions the whole year. If he threw 20 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions, you'd take that right now with Jayden Daniels. You'd take that. 3 games into his career, he has 2 touchdown passes, one of them to an offensive lineman, which makes it even more fun as he hit Trent Scott with the first touchdown last night. But what's going on here is really remarkable, and the feeling around town today. It's one thing if the Commanders go in there and win a game, and let's just say that they had seen enough struggles with Jayden Daniels in the first couple of games, and they want to sit him down for a little bit. That was still in play. And Marcus Mariota, who, by the way, has not even been healthy enough to dress in the last 2 games. I don't really know what's going on with him. Now, you hope Daniels stays healthy, but the Marcus Mariota, veteran guy who can win some games for you, he's not ready to play yet. But let's just say he was ready, and they managed to win a game with Mariota. Mariota could win a game like that. I mean, he's had some big games in the NFL. He's managed to hang around this long by being, pretty good, just not good enough to be the starter here. What if that happens? But no. There's this new era that's dawning here that we're looking at a guy who could be what they've been praying for around here for 30 years. Kirk had his moments. And Kirk has had an excellent career in the NFL, but he's never going to reach the superstar status, even though he's managed to get himself paid like a superstar. Daniels has superstar potential. Not there yet, but moving in that direction. And as soon as the game was over last night, the 38-34 win, 38-33, right? 38-33 win. 38-33. This was, you forget the score. How about that? This was Daniels with Lisa Salters on the field.
Jayden, you certainly did not look like a rookie tonight. Just what felt good to you?
We were just executing at a high level. Good credit to my old line, good credit to my receivers, my running backs, and most importantly, give credit to God.
Now, I'm going to tell you something. You were 21 for 23 passing, a 91% completion percentage. That's the highest for a rookie ever in the history of this league. Just what does that even mean to you?
That's crazy. Give glory to God, man. I want to be in this business without him, so I can't do nothing without him.
You were able to connect tonight with Terry McLaurin, your number 1. Just take us through the touchdown pass that kind of sealed the game.
Yeah, cover 0. I knew I was going to take a hit, but I trust my player to go out there and trust my guy to go make a play.
And that connection, what's it been like just kind of getting chemistry with that guy? He said he's been so patient.
It's been great. He's a pro's pro. All credit to him. It's not going to be, smooth at first. We're going to have to grow and keep growing.
But that wasn't your first NFL touchdown pass. Your first was to an offensive lineman. That was Trent Scott's first touchdown as well. In fact, he'd never even run a route. Who gets to keep that football?
I had to keep it. That's my first one.
Why?
I had to.
that's going to be a crazy trivia in the future, like who was my first career touchdown pass to.
Yeah. Trent Scott. And as I said in the last hour, the Dallas trivia question, who caught Roger Staubach's last pass? Also a lineman named Scott. Herb Scott was in the playoff game against the Rams in the 1979 season. That was the year that Washington lost the last game of the year at Dallas, where they had a 13-point lead in the fourth quarter, and Staubach hit Tony Hill for the game-winning touchdown pass, and Washington went home. And that was essentially the end of the Jack Pardee era, though he did coach one more year. And then Joe Gibbs came in 1981. So there's that. There's the cool part of that. Dan Quinn has been kind of low-key about the whole thing. You know, he's not – He's very happy that he has Jayden Daniels, but when he speaks of him, he's sort of measured. And this was Quinn after the game last night and discussing how his rookie played under the bright lights.
He's a really cool customer, and he's got real poise about him. I thought going in, we knew the importance of the ball and the decision making for that. We just couldn't give them short fields and chances to go. So his ability to know when to, when not to, when to make a play with his legs, I thought we've seen a lot of this at practice, and now it's carrying over into the games where the decision making, sliding, going, taking your shot. But I thought it was a really strong performance tonight by him.
We did see an actual baseball slide last night, something I don't think we ever saw from RG3. And although Daniels has been sliding, he's been sliding forward. This was an actual, slide into second base slide. And you even saw Quinn kind of grinning on the sideline about that. Like, that's really what we would like him to do. So that was key. I read this stat in the last hour. I got to read it again because it's incredible. The back-to-back performances that they've had, no punts and scoring on every drive. They have scored on every drive in back-to-back games, excluding kneel downs. They had 8 drives last night, 5 touchdowns, a field goal, and 2 ending in kneel downs at the end of the half. In week 2 versus the Giants, they had 7 field goals and a kneel down at the end of the half. So they're scoring 100%. Every time they've had the ball, they've scored in the last 2 games. Here's the stat on that. One game like that is rare. There have been 10 games since 2000 where a team scored on every drive excluding kneel downs. That's a 1 in 1,300 chance. Considering there have been 12,990 games, including the playoffs, the Commanders did this twice in a row, making it a 1 in 1.7 million feet. 1 in 1.7 million. These are like lottery odds. And here's another breakdown of that number. Daniels has had 2 career NFL games where his team scored on every drive, excluding kneel downs. That's 3 total starts. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes combined to do that twice in their entire careers, including playoffs, 1,094 starts. Let me repeat that. Between Brady with 7, Brees with 1, Peyton with 2, and Mahomes with 3 Super Bowls, all of them will be in the Hall of Fame, and in the case of Brees and Manning, they're there. That he did that twice in 2 weeks, and all these great players, all these incredible quarterbacks combined to do it only twice in their entire careers. Absolutely remarkable. Some confidence too here, and Quinn said this about last night. He said, we knew we were going to have to be aggressive. This is a team that, can score, and they proved it. It's not like Cincinnati had a bad offensive game. I mean, they exposed some real weaknesses in Washington's defense. With all the euphoria over Daniels, there's still some real defensive problems. Cincinnati had 436 yards of total offense. They threw for 324. So they were good last night offensively. So this is why Quinn had to do what he did in making these decisions. So it's coming down the home stretch of the game. They get to a 2nd and 20 because they're one of 2 sacks that was taken on the night by Daniels, and they're now facing 4th and 4. And they come up with a 9-yard completion to Zach Ertz to keep the drive alive, which sets up the touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin to essentially win the game. This was Quinn on the decision-making to go for it rather than try a long field goal or punt at that point in the game when they had the lead.
We knew we'd have to be aggressive in the game. to extend possessions, to give ourselves a chance. That's why we thought the special teams, John, was a big piece of this from a field position standpoint. If there was a gap, if there was an edge to find, we were going to dig for it. And that included going on certain distances on fourth down when we were in that part of the field. We knew we didn't meet the mark last week in some of the red zone. Like I said, we were not bitching about kicking field goals and making them last week, but we knew that was not sustainable for us in what we wanted to do. So I thought the third down in the red zone was going to be one of the areas that we really dug deep on and paid off for the guys tonight.
Obviously it did, and Quinn crediting the play calling that Cliff Kingsbury came up with last night.
Yeah, I thought Cliff called a great game. As I'm listening through it all week, all the different looks, the things we'd have to go through, especially down as we got work into the red zone. But we knew the third down in the red zone was going to be a really big part of this. But I thought he and the staff and the guys really had a very clear understanding of what we would have to do. And, having those moments come up where you have to take your shot and deliver, they weren't going to miss it.
Enjoy Cliff Kingsbury while you can. Because if Caleb Williams continues on the track he is now, not that he's been bad, but if he doesn't take a big step up, Matt Eberflus is not going to be there next year. And who was the quarterback whisperer for Caleb Williams at USC? It was Cliff Kingsbury. Also, Trevor Lawrence was miserable last night as his team dropped to 0-3, getting blown out by Buffalo. Not that the Jacksonville defense did him any favors, but he wasn't good. And there's even discussion, speculation, I guess, that he's going to be benched. So Quinn could go there to try Kingsbury could go there to try and fix him. So enjoy it while you can, but he did call an excellent game last night, and he's been really key in the development so far of Jayden Daniels as they expected. Last thing from Quinn, and this is his side of the ball. And right now, that defense doesn't look good. I mean, what they were able to do last night offensively, sustaining the drives by running the football and keeping the ball out of the hands of Cincinnati. They held the ball for 33 minutes last night, so that was a big part of the success. But also that there are some real warts there and secondary problems. So this is Quinn. He's not going to be openly critical. He's not going to do what Antonio Pierce did the other night after Oakland got their doors blown off by Carolina, where he said, guys, we're making business decisions, and we're going to have to make some business decisions on them. No, he's not doing that. But this is how he's couching a defense which clearly has a lot of holes right now.
You've heard me talk a lot about identity, the running and the hitting. There was a great tackle by Quan Martin, some spaces to go. The difficult part of playing against their receivers is the matchups and when they can see a look, and Joe is accustomed to go when that shot is there, and so they make it difficult to go when you try to take your shot, and they make you pay. Those are hard, but I was pleased, the style, the attitude, the effort. If we get those things right, the scheme parts will come, but you have to have those pieces in place first. And I thought we took a step forward on that tonight. I like the running and the hitting. When I get into the tape, we can go through the scheme. But I thought Joe and the staff and the guys knew this is a challenging matchup. How do we have to go? We'd have to give up some things in order to be on top. And so, for a good bit of the game, we saw that.
Attitude. It's kind of like when they do an evaluation of a player and they say he's coachable. I mean, that's the best thing you can say right now, because this defense, the secondary, is a big problem. And yeah, they're missing Emmanuel Forbes. Okay, when Emmanuel Forbes comes back, is anybody confident that he's going to be any good? He's also part of the issue there, and he's been lit up by big receivers in the past, right? And so now they're going to be facing Marvin Harrison, who had a bad first week, and the last 2 weeks has been great. Terrific with Kyler Murray. So they're going to have their hands full, and the fact that it's going to be on a short week here. So this is going to be a tough deal for them, as Coach Gibbs would say. Tough deal going to Arizona on a short week and trying to beat them. But right now, the big question going into the season, do they have a quarterback? It's probably not too early to say, well, yeah, they got one here. This is someone who will be quarterbacking here for a long, long time, barring injury. There's probably, it's a long season and anything can happen. But let me again read you the Barry's Reluga lead to his column today. Whatever happens Sunday in Arizona or the following week against Cleveland or all the weeks that remain in Jayden Daniels' rookie season and the rest of his career, remember Monday night. Monday night, he won an NFL game with his own talent, which is blazing, and his own demeanor, which embraces the Klieg lights rather than cowering from them. Monday night is when we discovered for sure that he can do this being quarterbacking an NFL team with a combination of explosiveness and calm. And let the record show that this team turned a corner on September 23rd, 2024. To me, it marks the end of the Dan Snyder era, that we bury the memories, the horribleness that went on for 24 years, and we move forward with a new ownership group, a new front office, a new coach, and most importantly, a new quarterback who looks like he has the potential to be great. Wow. We'll see the excitement that Bram Weinstein has when he comes up next. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning, coming up at 9 a.m.